Welcome to Human Insight World 2020. We're thrilled that you're here with us. My name is Andy McMillan. I'm the CEO of UserTesting, and we've got a really fun couple of days planned for you. We want to start off by saying thank you. We know that there's just so much going on in the world right now. We have so many demands on our time. Our businesses are changing. You have homeschooling going on possibly. You're worried about friends and loved ones and everything that's happening. And so we know that it's a big commitment to spend some time with us, and we really appreciate it. As part of that commitment to you and trying to give you a great and valuable event, we've really taken what we did last year, which was our first ever live in-person event, which we did in New York and in San Francisco, and we've moved it online into a virtual format, and we've really focused on three main areas. The first is we want to make sure that you can choose your own adventure. You can kind of pick up wherever you left off in different meetings, different places, and join the event when and where you can. So go through the agenda and find the right things for you and participate in those parts of the event. That said, we've also made an effort to try to bring as much live interaction to this as possible. And so we've set up a whole bunch of networking events and other activities. I know some of you joined us earlier this morning for yoga. We have things like that going on throughout the event. So we hope that you will take the time and grab the opportunity to meet other folks in the industry and around this great event in some of the spaces that we've set up. And most of all, we want you to enjoy the event. And we want you to make not only a worthwhile investment in your time from a professional standpoint, but also that you have a good time and you enjoy yourself. So thanks for being at High World 2020 and spending some time with us. It's a really important moment in time when we think about what we all focus on every day, about the experiences that are changing so rapidly. And really experiences that have been evolving over time. You know, we know there's a whole bunch of trends, like for example, e-commerce, that have been accelerating pretty consistently for quite a while. And then 2020 hit and we saw these just skyrocket, a massive shift into e-commerce. But these changes have been happening for a while. If we think about every industry, for the most part, has been going through some kind of digital transformation over the past decade or two. Think of things like the emergence of telemedicine as something we've been talking about for almost 20 years now and has now really skyrocketed to the forefront of how we get medical help. Meetings and how we participate in a remote nature with people that aren't necessarily right in the room with us. And that is something that's been a trend that's been happening now again for many decades and is now accelerated to the forefront. Online entertainment, streaming. I'm sure everybody like me is watching a ton of Netflix and Apple TV Plus and things like that now that we're so home-based. But again, that's not a new trend. It wasn't like we were all using DVDs last year and then all of a sudden switched to streaming because of what was going on. It was really an acceleration of those trends. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about throughout the event is how do we prepare ourselves to manage these trends, and also these trends that seem to be accelerating and happening more and more quickly. And the main way that we think about preparing for that is by addressing something that UserTesting has been referring to for a while as the empathy gap. The empathy gap is something that we've been studying for a while. It's this idea that, as captured in this great Capgemini study, that a vast majority of companies and organizations believe themselves to be customer-centric. When you work at those companies or you talk to those companies, they say things like, we're a customer-first organization, or the customer is always right, or everything we do is in service of the customer. I find the stat somewhat interesting because I don't know what the other 25% are saying they do or don't do, but let's just take as a baseline that a vast majority of organizations really do believe that they are customer-centric. However, when we go talk to consumers, the people that use these products and services, the customers of these brands, only 30% believe that the brands they work with are actually customer-centric. And so there's really only two ways to read this data. It can be that the people at these companies don't really believe what they're saying, or the point of view that we take at UserTesting, which is they just don't know. They don't have the empathy of understanding what these experiences are really like from that customer's perspective. And that's what we call the empathy gap. And we believe that if you can bridge this gap, that the people in these organizations want to deliver a great experience. I believe everyone who builds a product or service does this because they want to meet the customer's need. They care about how the service they delivered is perceived by their customer and how it's valued. And so if we're able to help organizations put themselves in the shoes of the customer, to see from their perspective, to understand what it's like to consume this service as that customer or as that user or as that constituent, that we can bridge this empathy gap and that organizations can build much better products and services. A big part of why this is important right now is because of this rapid changing environment. One of the great quotes I love from a business perspective is from John Chambers, who was the CEO of Cisco, who said, most businesses don't go out of business for doing the wrong thing. They go out of business for doing what was the right thing for too long. And this is something we've seen throughout this digital transformation journey. So many great businesses who have a traditional business model and are reluctant and can't make the justification for that transformation into the digital age. But they know it's happening. You can see the trends happening. We see this happen in so many different ways where customers are saying in their loudest voice, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I need, and organizations aren't able to respond. Again, I think that goes back to this empathy gap. Organizations really understanding that what is best for the customer is what's best for the company, and that evolving to meet those needs is how you build a successful organization. And this is going to be more and more true as we look at the accelerating rate of change. We all feel this in our lives. Every year feels like we're going so much faster than we were a few years ago. And we sense this in how things change, how we interact with one another, how our kids go to school, how the products and services that we buy service the needs that we have. You can see this in how new businesses emerge. I grew up in the Detroit area around the auto industry, and when new entrants emerged in the auto industry traditionally, you can imagine what they had to do to grow. You had to build manufacturing plants, you had to build distribution, you had to build dealerships, you had to ship these cars around the world. That all took time and a lot of capital. Think about today's digital businesses. When a new entrant enters a market, they can distribute their app globally tomorrow. They can put it in one of these great app stores and have it available on almost every mobile phone around the world. They have the ability to scale their infrastructure and their environments almost infinitely. We have these amazing public cloud providers that will help them manage demand on biggest shopping days of the year or surges in traffic when an event happens. And they can do that instantaneously. And what that has created is an environment where new products and services can capture huge amounts of users extremely quickly. Think of things like the airline industry that took almost 70 years to get to 50 million users of their product. Compare that with something like TikTok that was able to do that in 1.5 years to get to 50 million users. And so we now live in an environment where consumers can so easily switch from one product or service to another. It no longer depends on which business happens to be near my hometown or which thing happens to be physically convenient because of where it's located. I can decide to switch banking providers by changing the app on my phone. I can decide to change my transportation mode by switching the app on my phone. I can change who I buy from. I can change where I get my groceries. All of that can happen with a click and a swipe. And so we need to be prepared as businesses on how we adapt to that. The reality is how we adapt to that is by focusing on the customer experience. It is not the best technology wins anymore. We're all playing with a lot of the same technologies. It's who provides the most meaningful experience, who connects with me as a brand, as a service, who meets my needs best in a way that I enjoy the most. We see this in the performance at a company level. When you look at how CX leaders do against their laggards in stock market performance, CX leaders tremendously outperform everyone who lags in the industry because, again, it is so easy to switch and find that better experience. We know this because consumers tell us this. Consumers tell us that 86% of consumers would switch products or services for a better experience. 86%. So again, low barrier to change, massive appetite to change for a better service. We're going to see customers shifting all the time. So as an organization, how do we meet that challenge? I would argue it's not by looking in the rearview mirror. It is not to see what have we done in the past that made us successful. It's really about looking forward. It's about saying to ourselves, how do we build the intuition about where our customer is going? How do we build our product and service to meet that evolving need and meet our customer at that shared future? How do I invite them into the process to inform me and my decisions, to help my team? How do I make my customer my co-pilot along the way so I really understand where their needs are going and that I can build these great products and services? That's really about product intuition. It's about customer intuition. It's about really understanding at a core level what the needs and services are of my customer as things evolve. So throughout the event, we're going to focus on a couple of really key areas to help you and your team develop this kind of capability or build on top of capabilities that you already have. One of the key things we're going to focus on is how you test any experience. We hear from all of you that the needs of your customers are constantly changing and the modes in which you engage with them. So we're going to talk about everything from traditional kind of web-based app testing to how you can test in the mobile environment to even how you can test in the real world using things like the mobile camera phone and understand things like buy online and curbside pickup, or why it is that it's still hard to set the radio stations in my car. All of these are important parts of the experience that you need to be bringing together for your customer, and we're going to talk to you about different ways you can think about testing those experiences. We're going to talk about how you empower more people in your organization and more teams. And that's not just preparing reports for those folks, although that's often a very important way to disseminate information. It's actually inviting people into the process, because when we talk about empathy, it's not just something you can go bestow on other people. You can't say, I watched a user experience this, I'm telling you what it is, now you go do it. It's really about bringing people into that process and letting them build empathy for your users and for your customers. We're going to talk about how you reach more audiences. We hear from you all the time saying, I want to find more types of people, more diverse audiences, people in different locations, people with different backgrounds, different skill sets. Most importantly, people with different perspectives. So we're going to talk to you about how you can find different and unique audiences as part of your testing strategy. And then we're going to talk about how do you get to what matters and get there fast. So we're going to talk a lot about how we give you access to what we call human insight in an efficient way and in a shareable way so that your team can be garnering those insights and putting them to work quickly. To do that, we're going to kick it off by having Janelle Estes come and talk about how do we design and build for changing behaviors, which is really what we've been talking about so far this morning with this rapidly changing environment. Your consumers, your customers, more choices than ever before. They're going to be making rapid decisions. You need to be designing and building for those rapid decisions. And so with that, Janelle, welcome to Hi World, and let's talk about how we design for this kind of behavior.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks everyone for joining us. We're excited you're here. What Andy has just framed up is, quite frankly, this interesting new world where there are so many forces coming together that are now requiring businesses and requiring companies to be customer-centric. There's simply no way around it. Andy talked about all the massive shifts that have happened across nearly every industry. And what's interesting about these pivots and the way businesses are adapting and changing is that it's all being driven by new needs and new customer behaviors. It's not like we just woke up one day and decided we wanted to have our kids learn from the kitchen counter through remote learning instead of going to school, or that we just decided that working out in our living room was a better alternative than going to a gym. In many cases, these new behavior changes are required, but in other cases, these new behaviors are very deliberate choices that consumers are making. And the whole way that people make decisions and the heuristics that they now use to drive those decisions are all changing. What we're seeing in terms of how people are making decisions is that they're looking for solutions and experiences that make them feel safe, that make them feel secure, that remove uncertainty. It's the companies that can understand those core needs and motivations that will be successful in their pivots and how they adapt as businesses. As someone who's been in the field of customer experience and human-centered design for the better part of my career, it's really interesting as I've never seen behavior change so rapidly, and I've never seen companies pivot so quickly. A lot of the new behaviors that we're seeing are essentially breaking my own mental model of how I think about people, how I think about behavior, how I think about, those core human needs. And it's not just breaking my mental model, it's likely breaking yours. And it's also challenging some of these predictive models that we've put in place in order to run our businesses at scale. All of this new behavior is not exactly jiving with past behavior. And so the future is now incredibly hard to predict. And it's those teams and those companies and businesses that can try to avoid looking in the rearview mirror and instead looking to the future, looking ahead, truly understanding their customers as people with these innate needs and motivations, and offering solutions and experiences that meet and hopefully exceed those expectations. Those are the companies that are going to be successful now and in the future. At UserTesting, in order to understand customers, we believe in 3 types of data. The first data is behavioral data, or what people are doing. And this is all the analytics and big data that we've invested in over the last decade plus. The second type of data is attitudinal. Attitudinal data is really about understanding what people are saying about your experience. This is where frameworks like NPS and CSAT and other survey type practices, this is where those fall. And the third type of data is what we call empathetic data. And quite simply, these are the stories behind all of the behavioral and attitudinal data. Why are people engaging with you? Why did they have a poor experience? This type of data allows you to essentially see the world through the eyes of your customers and also walk a mile in their shoes. It's this type of data that really helps you build that authentic connection with your customer so you can understand them as people instead of data points. And this understanding helps drive teams to make better decisions and ultimately provide better experiences that are more successful in the market and help drive success for your company. As you can imagine, with the shifting environment, changes in consumer behavior, and even business model pivots, our customers are relying on us more so than ever before. In analyzing hundreds of thousands of studies on the UserTesting platform over the last 6 months, we've seen 3 big patterns emerge, and we'd like to share those with you now. The first pattern we've seen is that teams are working to not only understand the behavior shifts in their customer base, but why those are occurring. The second trend we've seen is teams working hard to create new and innovative solutions to solve either new problems or solve existing problems where the current solution no longer works in the current environment. And the third trend we've seen is teams really working hard to optimize existing experiences, and in particular digital experiences, as we've seen massive adoption of that channel. So let's walk through each of these with a few examples. First, understanding behavior changes. Many of our customers are looking at the data and they're seeing shifts in behavior, and they're trying to understand why that shift is happening and even how they can better serve their customers. One of our customers, IHG, has been doing exactly this. In a world where travel has been absolutely disrupted, the team has to better understand the customer and make pivots. And that's exactly what this team has been working on. Let's hear from Janelle and Miriam on the journey they've been on.
My name is Janelle Blackman. I work for IHG and I am a program manager for the marketing and campaigns team. I work on our digital channels, which is our website and our apps, and we look at the roadmap of our product, our marketing and campaign product. My customer is basically anyone that would stay in a hotel. So we have everything from mainstream hotels to super luxury hotels at IHG.
Hi, my name is Mariam Rashid and I'm a product experience designer. Customer feedback helps us make better decisions because we're able to actually really dig deep into what our customers want and provide that to them. Without this feedback, we wouldn't even know where to start and where to go. We're always looking for better improvements and optimizations to our product, and so using customer feedback has really helped inform all of the decisions that we make accordingly.
This has been a big year of customer behavior change. We thought we had a pretty good handle on our typical customer segments. We thought we had done enough testing where we kind of understood to the most part of what our customers were thinking, where they were going. And then 2020 came and all of that knowledge just kind of went out the door. And we had to learn our customers all over again. And we had to adapt our business in order to activate on that learning very quickly. Before, we used to have longer testing experiences and we used to have very long product cycles as we were going out. And it's changed from not so much of having this one big thing, but rather, can we make those small changes that matter over time that really add the value to our business? We have made a lot of changes. From everything from our content on our home pages, on our hotel details pages, has been totally changed based on the testing that we did to kind of figure out what was the most important things that our consumers wanted to know at this time. We have changed even our flow of traffic into our booking experience to accommodate the flexible cancellations and things like that. How do we message that?
We really are instilling a user-centric mindset across every single stage of the product journey. Every single way we're launching tests to validate whether it's an idea, a concept, even the designs that we're launching. And so instilling that throughout has been a very healthy shift in our mindset and a healthy shift in how we function as a team.
The biggest impact is that we've turned from a company that was performing based on their gut instinct to a company that values data, that values the consumer. There is a real thirst now in our company to get to know the insights or to ask that question first. And that has really made us a stronger, more competitive company because we're not guessing after we spend all the money and all the time to build out this new feature, will it work or not? We are pretty sure by the time that we build it out and we release it to the public that this is going to make an impact, and we know exactly what type of impact to expect.
Thanks, Janelle and Miriam. At User Testing, we've also been doing some of our own primary research. So we've been keeping a pulse on the shifts in consumer behavior across nearly every industry. Everything from B2B to financial services to retail to restaurant and QSR. The list goes on and on. If you want to check out some of our findings, you can look on our blog under the Human Insight Trends posts. I'd like to show you an example from one of our studies, and this is our retail study. And in this study, we tried to uncover why people's behaviors were shifting. And here's a short video clip to help illustrate what we learned.
Right now, there are certain stores I go in where you see tons of people without masks, not socially distancing, and no one's saying anything and nothing's being done. And I would like to see these stores be more strict about that. If someone tries to come in without a mask, I want to see stores go, no, you can't. Here's a mask. You have to wear it if you're in here. I want to see those policies enforced. As long as that stuff's being enforced, I'm going to feel a lot more safe. But if they're not enforcing it, then that's what concerns me. There are way too many people who are doing whatever they want.
I love curbside pickup. It is so great. Plus, I'm married and I have 4 children, and not having to take my littles into a restaurant is amazing. So having it come to me has changed my life.
This is conditioning us all to shop a different way and to get our products in a different way. And I think that and working from home, there's all kinds of stuff that this is introducing that's not going to go away.
I don't know about you, but after watching that clip, you can truly empathize with those people. The stories and just the verbal explanations they provide and seeing their faces as they explain their experiences and their emotions, it just adds this whole layer of human perspective that's missing from the data points. Okay, so for the second trend we've seen in our customer base, this is around creating new and innovative solutions to solve either new problems or solve existing problems where the current solution can no longer be used. So what if you're a car maker and you can no longer offer in-person test drives? How do you replicate that experience? What if you're a jewelry company and you can no longer allow people to come into a store to try on a ring? How do you solve that problem in this new world? we've been seeing many of our customers use the platform to really try to uncover these new innovative solutions. One of our customers, Guitar Center, went through this exact transformation. So they offered in-person music lessons, and the team was given about 3 weeks to figure out how to create a COVID-friendly alternative. The team used us in a couple different ways. First, they used us to uncover the market opportunity. What do people expect from virtual lessons? How much are they willing to pay for an offering like this? What are the most in-demand music lesson types? Is it piano? Is it guitar? Is it trombone? And how often do people want to meet, and how long should these sessions be? So first they used user testing to answer those questions. And then once they had a solution developed, they used us to essentially test that end-to-end journey to make sure it made sense, and that people understood how to use it, and essentially that to ensure that it was a great experience. The team has seen some early adoption of this offering, and they continue to use us to further refine and enhance that experience. The third trend we've seen in our customer base is really around optimizing digital channels, and especially those that are already existing. One of our more forward-thinking customers at Dick's Sporting Goods used our platform to do exactly this. They had an existing curbside offering that wasn't exactly scalable, and so the team was given a short deadline to essentially create a scalable solution that helped people get to their goods quickly and efficiently by ordering online and picking up curbside. Let's hear from the team on their journey in moving to a more fluid and usable curbside experience.
Hi, I'm Matt Moyer, Senior UX Designer with Athlete Fulfillment at Dick's Sporting Goods. And Athlete Fulfillment simply means we help to make sure that when you order something on dicksportinggoods.com, that our stores are able to ship that order to you, or you're able to pick it up at one of our stores.
My name is Aaron Kajandik. I'm a Senior Product Manager at Dick's Sporting Goods. Imagine you are a brick and mortar retailer who's been in business for 72 years. And you pride yourself on an unparalleled in-store shopping experience. And then overnight, every single one of your 852 stores has to close due to COVID. What do? How do you keep your business afloat? And how do you still service that athlete? Fortunately, your online business is still very relevant, but you have a problem. How do you transition all of these in-store customers to an online experience, keeping in mind the safety of them and the safety of your associates and teammates who work in the stores?
From previous curbside research, we had learned that many of our athletes would prefer a check-in process that did not involve picking up the phone and talking to somebody when they arrived. So when our stores shut down, we gathered together with a few product teams and sketched out a concept for how we might use technology to enable a check-in process for them after they parked. Within 2 days of sketching out the wireframes, we launched our first MVP that allowed people to drive up to the store, tap a button in their email, and let us know they'd arrived. So we used user testing to uncover a number of insights that we couldn't safely discover through field research in March and April. First, we used user testing to figure out how our athletes' shopping habits had changed and what emotions they were feeling. Secondly, we used user testing to see how our technological check-in experience for curbside was working. Was it working well? Were there hiccups? What needed to change? And finally, after we launched a new feature that allowed alternative pickup options if their preferred store couldn't find their item, we reached back out to them to talk about their experience using that offering.
The addition of curbside drove a tremendous value to our business. In early spring, we noticed a 1,000% increase in our online pickup business. This meant that athletes really resonated with the convenience that curbside provided them. And the trend remained strong. Through the summer and early fall, 75% of our athletes still choose to pick up their order via our curbside service.
The financials are great, but as a team, we're really motivated by elevating the customer experience. And the launch of curbside pickup resulted in the largest increase in customer satisfaction that we've ever seen. increasing by more than 10% when we launched this new offering.
So Matt, are you saying curbside is here to stay?
Aaron, curbside is definitely here to stay.
Thanks, Aaron and Matt. It was a great story and really impressive that you were able to pull that off in such a short time period. In addition to the trends that we've seen within our customer base in terms of use cases and how they're using user testing to adapt to this new world, we've also seen a shift in the awareness that our teams and customers have around who they're getting feedback from. There are so many attributes and characteristics about people that make us unique as human beings, and we feel at User Testing it's incredibly important to get a diverse and representative lens on your customers in order to make the right decisions. Everything from race to neurodiversity to physical impairments, even where you're located within the world, these all have a major impact on how you perceive experiences and essentially how teams should think about how to design and how to create experiences for everyone. At User Testing, we've recently partnered with Crunchbase. Crunchbase is a platform for looking up information about private and public companies. Crunchbase wanted to add some filters to their experience to help people who visited the site filter by certain attributes. One of our lead researchers at User Testing, Lisa Lloyd, ran this engagement, and we're going to hear from her next on what the experience was like, what they learned, and what the impact was.
Hi, my name is Lisa Lloyd and I'm a customer onboarding specialist. I help customers ask the right questions to figure out what they're doing well and what they could be doing better. I also help customers determine who the right audience should include. What does that sound like? Diversity and inclusion. There are 3 things every company needs before investing in diversity and approaching race in their products and customer experiences. 1, awareness. Know that there is a global sickness and your company is not immune to it. Courage. Have the courage to have difficult and uncomfortable conversations. 3, tactics. That's where user testing comes in. We provide actionable items to drive our customers toward their goal. Now, Crunchbase is a platform for professionals to help them discover and connect with innovative companies. As part of their diversity plan, they committed to building products that increase equity in the startup and venture community. The idea was to highlight minority-led and founded organizations by adding racial and ethnic descriptors to their search filters. But they had some questions. Would this be valuable, or would it deter people from working with these organizations? And what racial and ethnic descriptors should they use? So what did we do? What we do best. We launched some tests. First, we searched and found audiences that were reflective of the minority groups they wanted to highlight. And then we developed test plans to get feedback that was culturally relevant. What did we find out? That the racial and ethnic descriptors were valuable when done thoughtfully. If not, people were concerned that we were opening up these organizations to more harm. The words that you use in those descriptors matter. We even had to update our original list of terms. And last but certainly not least, the order in which you list those racial and ethnic descriptors also matters. Note to self, alphabetical order is best. Now, what's truly remarkable about these insights is that Crunchbase applied them to their diversity plan, their workforce, and their mission. We hope that everybody is as brave when it comes to promoting equality and equity. If you're only getting feedback from an homogeneous group of people, you're not getting the insights you need to serve your customers best and most effectively. Seek outside perspectives by recruiting diverse audiences. If you need help, you know who to call. Crunchbase did.
Thanks, Lisa, for sharing your perspective on the partnership with Crunchbase. Okay, in this final section, what we'd like to do is take everything we know and believe about the power of customer experience and the power of listening and truly understanding and empathizing with your customers and using that to drive organizational change and build a customer-centric culture. The good news is most everyone here attending, and actually hopefully everyone attending, understands the importance. We believe in the value of building customer empathy and creating great experiences. But sometimes we find ourselves in interesting scenarios where we have to defend the customer. We have to prove or essentially push the team to really see the customer as the North Star. And while we have made a ton of progress here, I've learned and seen a lot over the course of my career, and we certainly haven't always been so open to customer centricity. But it doesn't mean our work is over. We still have a lot of work to do. And in this new way of the world, moving your teams to be customer-centric is more important than ever before. I'd like to share with you some stats from our CX annual survey that we ran earlier this year. First, we asked executives, how many of you believed customer experience to be important? Of the people who responded, to no surprise, about 95% of them said, yes, absolutely, customer experience is critical. We also asked teams how customer-centric they believed their organizations to be. And you can see here, only a third of them indicated that their teams and companies were customer-centric. And so there's this really interesting divide between what executives think is happening or what executives value and what's actually happening within teams and organizations. So how do we close this gap? How do we make it so what is valued at the top is what's actually happening as we build and create products and experiences? We have some guidelines and recommendations for you to do exactly that. First, invite others in. Second, consider empowering others. And third, make sure you share your results and wins widely and you're tying them to a bigger outcome. So let's walk through each of these with some practical tips. For the first guideline, inviting others in, a great way to start is to solicit ideas from teams. Solicit ideas from people who are building experiences or generally have questions about your customers. I've seen this done informally through just hallway conversations and also more formally through things like intake forms and processes around gathering questions that teams have. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but just starting the conversation is critical. The second thing you can do is organize what we call watch parties. And these watch parties can help build up this organizational empathy. Watch parties can be informal. Order a pizza, send people lunches at home, and everybody hops on a Zoom and watches a video of a few customers using the experience. If you start to do this on a regular basis over time, you start to build up this organizational understanding of your customers. And so everyone has them top of mind as they make decisions and build experiences. The third tip here is around sharing your wins. If you used user feedback or customer feedback to make a decision, to launch a new product, to enhance an existing experience, talk about it. Even just mentioning something small you learned in a passing conversation helps people keep the customer top of mind. For the Empowering Others guideline, there are 3 practical tips that we'd like to provide. First, you have to make it easy. Whether you are setting up people to gather their own feedback and connect with customers on their own, or you are setting up processes for them to go to your team to get insight, that experience has to be easy. Just as we build experiences for our customers, we also need to build experiences that are seamless for our internal stakeholders. Second, show up where they are. You will have a lot more luck integrating into existing workflows and processes instead of building new workflows and processes that people have to adopt, as part of their day-to-day work. For example, if you know your team uses an agile product development cycle, figure out the three most critical places where you want to embed yourself into that process, where you want to embed human insight into what the team is doing. The third tip for empowering others is really to consider every customer touch point. It's not just digital experiences that need to be optimized, it's actually any experience or touch point that a customer has with your company. Everything from email to social media to brand and advertising, these are all prime opportunities for you to empower those teams and help them better understand the customer so they can make better, more informed decisions. The final guideline we have is around making sure your work is tied to some larger outcome. If you haven't gone through this activity already, or if you don't do this on a regular basis, I'd recommend adopting this as part of your process. Whenever you're talking to customers, you likely have a question that you're trying to answer. So jot that question down. That question should ultimately map to some project that you're working on. And from there, there's likely a larger initiative that the team is driving towards. Map that out. And then finally, this all ladders up to some higher level business outcome. You should be tying your work to one of those higher level business outcomes to show what you're striving towards and how you're making impact. The good news is that there's really a small handful of overall business goals that you're likely impacting. Usually your work will map to either driving growth, driving innovation, reducing risk, or reducing cost. But I encourage you to think about your work this way and how you can impact those key business drivers. Coming up next, you're going to hear from Beth Ard. Beth is the VP of Customer Experience at Lumen Technologies, and she's really driven a customer-centric culture there, driven by human insight. So I'll hand it over to Andy and Beth now to chat about how she's done that.
All right, welcome, Beth. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you here and talking a little bit about some of the things that are going on at Lumen, formerly known as CenturyLink. You've just gone through a pretty big brand refresh, so congrats on that. Maybe just for a little bit of context, could you tell the audience a little bit about kind of your role and the things you're responsible for at Lumen?
Sure, absolutely. So I lead a global team of customer experience experts. We focus on the voice of the customer insights. We also have a functional area where we look at employee experience as well as the customer journey. So we have a team focused on the customer journey. And then we have a CX advocacy program. So we're really looking at how can we convert our promoters into advocates for the brand. And then we have a communications and culture team that's really trying to drive overall customer first culture throughout Lumen.
Excellent. And we've been talking a ton throughout the event on kind of how folks need to know their customers, how we need to know our customers, better than ever in these days and all the changing consumer sentiment. Can you tell us a little bit about, the ability for you all to kind of understand your customers deeply and react to their needs? How do you do that? How do you make that something of importance at Lumen?
Yeah, and that is a challenge, right? Because at Lumen, we're a $4 billion company with 40,000 employees. And so being agile is very challenging for us. But it is something that we absolutely have to do because we have to bring in customer feedback quickly and be able to respond quickly to that. And I think, quite frankly, that's why the user testing platform was so appealing to us because one, it was easy to use, but two, we were able to field a panel very quickly. And in the past, we've had to do that ourselves, and it takes quite a bit of time. And that delay can mean the difference between acting on a market opportunity or correcting an experience that isn't working for customers and not being able to do that and that impacting overall customer experience scores.
And what's the impact of something like that? I mean, I think you're right. I like the way you frame it too. I mean, the speed at which we're all having to operate, the way in which digital teams work now. I mean, it is so much about iterating and being fast. I mean, so what's been the impact of trying to bring the customer more timely, I guess, in a more timely way into these discussions?
Yeah, I think one of the key areas that we've been focusing on is really trying to scale out the platform across the organization. And so one of the key impacts that we're looking for is frankly cultural change and the ability to really react quickly, again, as we said, to that feedback. We also need to look at measurements to measure success. So one of the key areas we looked at to start was how do we measure the adoption of the platform and making sure that we're getting the usage out of the platform that we need. And it was less about driving an ROI on the platform and more about being able to be able to trend whether we really are starting to see that customer first behavior resonating across the organization. In fairness though, we looked at our initial ROI for this platform around two things. One is how can we quickly build customer experiences that we don't have to go back and later fix. So we had a development structure where oftentimes we missed the mark when we went out to the market. And so not only does that really drain our resources, and there's a huge OpEx impact to that. And so we quantified that when we looked at how do we get an ROI on the platform. But then we also looked at quantifying what is the missed opportunity for us to be delayed in giving the customer the experience or the product that they need. And so those two things started the way we thought about the platform. But since then, now that we have a lot of work streams leveraging the insights that we're gaining, we now are looking at when those experiences launch, is that improving our NPS score? Is that improving our customer ease score with our customers? Because that's where we really drive loyalty. And then of course we can relate that to revenue.
I think that's great. And one of the things that we have talking about kind of throughout the event, you'll see is a big topic we're going to be delivering a bunch of sessions around is this idea that in some ways, this is the old preaching to the choir. This is an audience of folks who believe in customer experience, or they probably wouldn't come to the Human Insight Summit. But what we hear a lot of folks talk about is how do I drive the kind of change that you're talking about? I mean, you're at a large organization with tremendous, scope and scale, but also a lot of traditional ways things have been done. So how do you really push the organization to make these changes, to embrace the customer, to drive urgency and action? I think it's one of the things that I've really been impressed with when we've met with your team and what you all are trying to do. So how do the folks that are here listening to us that are, in some ways emotionally on board with the idea of like, yeah, we should listen to our customers, how do they drive action in their organizations?
That's right. Yeah, so I mean, that is the key, because if you're not learning from the customer insights and the human insights, if you will, the data that you're getting, and you're not acting on that data, then there's really no reason to capture that data. And so we have spent a lot of trying to institutionalize that practice by changing the way we work. So if you think about the scaled agile environment where we're constantly doing development, how do we have discrete points in which we know that those development teams will actually go out and user test? So we've been very prescriptive in putting that into the key processes that we use to improve the customer experience. And that's been critical for adoption. And the other thing, which was a collateral benefit, I would say, is that it's broken down silos. And so when we look at a problem, so we get customer data back, and usually a customer is not pointing the finger and saying, operations isn't doing this, or, that digital experience isn't good. Customers are saying, something very specific about the experience they're having. And so what it forces us to do is kind of everybody come together in the room, a cross-functional team, and examine the customer problem and kind of break down the silos of I own this or you own that, and look at it from a journey perspective. So that end-to-end experience of which everyone has a part to play, but you to see that the platform encourages that kind of behavior because of the data that we're getting back. And that's been an amazing, I would say, cultural consequence to this, a positive cultural consequence to really moving into this framework and with this platform.
I think that's incredible. And it really speaks to this idea that empathy is something that people have to kind of engage with to get back, right? And so the way you all are really kind of pushing that into the organization and thinking about that as a customer first company, I think is it's very impressive. And I will say I've been really blown away with the team as I said, whenever I've met with them, the way your team talks about engaging with customers and caring about what the customer's doing. It really is a kind of a cultural tenet that has been really impressive to see.
And we have a lot of work to do. I mean, that's why we have the platform, right? And because as you mentioned early on, expectations are continually changing. Our customers are raising the bar or they're changing the game. I think in COVID, we all saw they changed the game. Their expectations of us were much different. And so because of that, it's a never ending cycle of reviewing, those insights and making sure that you're acting on those insights. I will also say that we're starting to share the insights with people that aren't necessarily on those cross-functional teams. And that's also helping us, especially the videos for some reason, for reasons we all know are very compelling. Yeah. And so we're to share them beyond just those individuals that have to take action, but to get the whole company kind of familiar with that empathy for that customer and really hear that customers, like in a lot of cases, struggle through experiences. And so we've been starting to post those and publish those across the business, which has been another way to, again, drive cultural change.
I think it's outstanding. And it really is a good model for folks to think about and to kind of aim for about driving change. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts and feedback and the things that you all are doing. I think it's been really insightful. So thanks for doing that. And we really hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Beth, for taking some time and talking through all of the things that you're leading at Lumen Technologies around driving human empathy and insight into everything that you guys are doing. I think it's really insightful and informative about how you all are approaching it and really thinking big about the perspective that customers can bring into your business. So we really appreciate the time and the sit down. Let's talk through the takeaways from this morning. We covered a whole bunch of material. Again, we really value your time, and I hope that you're getting a lot of value from the content that the team has pulled together. But we know that empathy has never mattered more than it matters right now. Again, we feel this in our daily lives. We feel this as consumers. We need to really feel this also as companies, as designers and people who build products and marketing, that having empathy for our different users and their different perspectives is really critical to meeting the evolving needs of our customers. Understanding your customer is really the only way to build a great experience. We are not going to be able to guess at their needs, hope that somehow like agile software development will let us keep course correcting. If your competitor understands your customer's needs better than you, they are going to take market share from you. So we need to really be proactive in reaching out, understanding those needs, building intuition about our customers, and building that future for them jointly. Customer experience is the new economy. This is how companies are going to win and lose markets. This is the battleground. You are not going to win new customers, new market share simply because you have the best technology or even the best product. It is going to be the experience in and around those products and services that is going to drive where customers put their dollars. They're telling us this. So we need to be thinking about those experiences broadly and knowing that that's the battleground that we're competing on in this customer experience economy. We also know, and you heard some of this in the conversation with Beth, that we need to really be building a culture of customer centricity in our organizations. This cannot be the job of one disparate group that's supposed to represent the customer alone. We can certainly have parts of our organization that are highly focused on that, but we really need to think about how are we bringing the customer into more of the company, into more parts of the organization, and really helping shift the attitudes and mindsets of the people in and around everything that we do as a company. So it really is a cultural change and something we need to think about really driving, not just top down, but also bottoms up and across the organizations if we want to be successful. We've got a great rest of the day planned for today as our day one. We have a couple of great keynote speakers throughout the event. Today, we're going to wrap up the first day with Jonah Berger, who is a New York Times and Wall Street Journal author, best-selling author, who's going to talk to us about how to change anyone's mind. And this is a good way for us to think about in the organization, how are we convincing folks that this matters, that human empathy is important, that we need to change the assumptions that we have about the products and services that we're building or who our target audience might be or anything like that. There's a lot of work to do there, and I think Jonah's gonna have a really interesting conversation for all of us. Tomorrow, we have another interesting keynote. We're gonna have Trisha Wang here, who is a global tech ethnographer. She has done amazing work and some great TED Talks and other things around how do we understand our customer going forward if everything we know about them has changed. And I can think of no better topic with all this going on in the world right now than really thinking about how to reassess our assumptions about our customers and our users. And so I think Trisha's gonna have a really great conversation with us all tomorrow about that. We have amazing speakers throughout the event. So thank you to our customer speakers that have put time into this and joined us at the event to share their stories. You as a person who's joining the event can go and listen to these great brands, these amazing customers, talk about what these organizations are doing to be more customer centric, to build empathy into what they're doing and really understand their customer needs. So we're really privileged and honored to have these great brands here. Again, I want to thank our presenters and our customers for doing this, and I think you'll get a tremendous amount of value from hearing what your peers are doing and what they're seeing success with in the market. For today, the rest of the agenda today, as I mentioned at the start of the day, we have kind of a choose your own adventure style to this event, knowing that we're online and your time is precious. We want to make sure that you can find just the right sessions for you. We essentially have 3 tracks that you can pick different things from. Our first track is customer feedback fundamentals. So we have a couple of interesting topics in there. We have one around insights for business, and then we have a whole track around the power of research. So again, this is our agenda today. You can pick and choose which of these you want to go to. And then tomorrow we'll have a similar agenda, but we're kicking off again at 8:30 Pacific time, US time, on the West Coast. At 8:30 in the morning, our Chief Technology Officer, Kai Vanderloo, and our Chief Marketing Officer, Michelle Huff, are going to walk through our product keynote, where you can really learn about the different features and functions that we're adding to our platform to really help you meet this evolving and scaling need to drive empathy in your organization. Also, please join our partner pavilion. We have some great partners that are here as part of the event that are helping us really show value and how it is that you can get these human insights and distribute them to your organization or organize them or drive them into your product planning process. So we have Enjoy HQ, Fuel Cycle, and Pendo here. So thank you to them for partnering with us. Great solutions in and around user testing with each one of these partners. So be sure to check out our partner pavilion. And again, finally, just a huge thank you to those of you that are customers. We are a very customer-centric organization ourselves. We value your feedback. We value the ideas that you give with us, the time that you spend on our platform, the time you spend with us as an organization. For those of you that are joining us that maybe aren't customers but are interested in what we're doing, thank you for your time, for your interest. Again, we know that you have so much going on right now. There's so much happening in your companies, in the world, in our home lives. And for you to take some time away from all of that to spend with us, we treasure that dearly. We are appreciative of your time and your effort, and we just want to say thank you, and we hope you have a great Hi World 2020, and we'll see you at the different networking events and in some of the sessions. So have a great rest of the day. As I said, see the agenda, find the sessions that are right for you, and remember tomorrow morning, 8:30 Pacific time, we have our product keynote. So with that, let's head to our next sessions, and I hope everyone has a great day.